Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking episode 13 of season 3 of Arrow called Caneries. This is the much anticipated return of Katie Lotz as Sara Lance, albeit as a hallucination, but still this is one a lot of people have really been looking forward to. And overall, I mean, a lot of cool stuff happens in this episode, but it just didn't really feel like it really connected very well. I mean, again, it's a lot of nice little beats, but the song could be better. Let's put it that way. So let's just kind of get right into things. And one of the major ones is, of course, that this episode is where Oliver reveals to Thea that he is, in fact, the Arrow. And I saw some people were like, what's up with Thea? You know, what the hell's wrong with her that she isn't angry at Oliver for lying to her? Okay, Oliver lied to Thea in order to spend his time saving lives. If Thea had freaked out and gotten angry at him, people would have been like, wow, Thea's being a selfish little bitch. Here, because Thea has actually grown up since we first were introduced to her, she realizes, wow, what a sacrifice this must have been for Oliver. All the bad stuff that happened to him. And you know, this is a sign of her maturity. She realizes that Oliver was out there going and being, well, you can't say that exactly that he was being selfless the entire time. For a good chunk of his early days, Oliver was just basically a guy on a mission of revenge. You know, he really was basically just a murderer. But he's changed. And Thea has seen and been saved by the vigilante. So she knows that that Oliver's gone out there and done things that have made Starling City a better place, that he has saved lives. And her not being angry about that is an acknowledgement that she's changed, that she's become a less selfish and better person. And it would really be a disservice to Thea as a character for her to get angry or to call Oliver selfish for lying to her. I mean, look at the situation she's in now. She understands the idea that sometimes you do lie to people you love in order to protect them. Because, there's the whole, oh yeah, I'm really just kind of, taking some time out to chill when really I'm learning how to fight from my mass murderer father. So, yeah. Anyway, kind of continuing on talking all about Thea and whatnot. We do finally get rid of Chase, who was a character I think was pretty much universally hated by the fans. And Thea gets to add a notch to the old list of sexual encounters which I regret. That, pretty much everybody eventually has in their life. Albeit turning out that the guy turning out to be someone who was trying to poison her at the behest of the League of Assassins, that's a little bit more worse than some others out there. You know what's really hilarious about that scene though, where she and Chase sort of get into that fight, is that Roy busts in through the door, like just seconds later. I mean, so soon after that, he had to have been hanging around outside the apartment, which is not that hard to believe given that sort of sad look he saw when he had on his face when he saw Thea and Chase head off. But still, how messed up is that? You're hanging around outside your ex-girlfriend's apartment while she's screwing some DJ. Like, oh man. But thankfully Thea doesn't really pick up on that or comment on that, or comment on the time that the vigilante attacked her mother and her mom shot the vigilante. There's no like, hey Oliver, didn't mom doesn't if you're the Arrow, doesn't that mean that mom shot you that one time? Yeah. I wasn't really gonna hurt her. I just was trying to scare her to get some information. Like, hey Oliver, does you being the vigilante have any reason to why that Slade Wilson dude, attacked us and killed Mom? Oh, yeah. Oliver and Thea are gonna have a lot to talk about. Okay. So let's see. I do have to say I thought Thea's kind of about face on her dad was a little like, where did that come from? But okay. And it's sort of funny that it sort of took him killing Chase right in front of her for Thea to finally really understand that this is a serious situation. We can't just hang around here in Starling City and pretend that nothing's wrong. Nothing else particularly to say about Roy. Now, I really did like that scene down in the Arrow Cave with, Felicity and Dig getting pissed off at Oliver, and they're like, "No, Oliver, we can't just pretend that you being basically dead didn't happen. Things have changed, and they can't go back." And Oliver did not take that terribly well. He's used to being sort of the unquestioned leader here. But good on Felicity and Dig for standing up to him. I mean, this is a situation where the results just should not be ignored. And of course, this just sort of further exacerbates the sort of rocky situation he's on with Felicity right now. But of course, it's not all bad. I mean, after things have calmed down a little bit, Oliver and Dig go up to the club, grab a drink, and have a bro moment, and that's cool. I really do love that even though Oliver is this hero and he's the leader and he's a major badass, he's still kind of the younger brother in his relationship with Dig. And Dig can kind of have those moments where he like sits down and kind of gives Oliver a little bit of perspective on life. Dig's an older guy. He's a guy with a kid. He's going to get married soon. He's been married. Dig's been a lot of places that Oliver hasn't been, despite everything that he's been through. Nothing particular to say about the Hong Kong flashbacks this episode, except that it does a really nice job of reminding us that Amanda Waller is just truly an awful, horrible person. I mean, she really is, in a lot of ways, often, in my book, kind of an enemy of the Justice League, that they just sort of, I don't know if I want to say tolerate her. I mean, if they really, really wanted to get rid of her, they probably could, but Amanda Waller is a known quantity, very much a case of the devil So nothing else particular to say about them. Again, nothing huge to say about Malcolm Merlyn. He does seem to be rolling pretty well with the punches of Thea going from like, no, you and my brother, we can get along, it's cool, into, screw you, Dad, we'll work together, but I don't like you and I don't trust you. It's like, okay, Thea, I love you anyway. It's like, but Malcolm knows he's done some bad shit, so I guess he's just kind of like, what, Thea's talking to me and acknowledges me as her father. I guess I probably shouldn't ask for much more than that. Nothing really particular to say about Count Vertigo this episode. I mean, he was really just a plot device. This was a chance to sort of let Peter Stormare ham it up a little bit, but again, there really wasn't much to say about him character-wise. It's not like he has any serious connection to Laurel. So let's see, what else? Well, of course, Laurel is the big thrust of this episode, and her hallucinations on Vertigo. Now that's very interesting stuff there. And before we get into that, the one thing I got to talk about is a lot of people, like when Sara said, like, why did I have to die? And a lot of people I saw on Tumblr, and I know I'm stupid for reading Tumblr because it always just pisses me off. But what can I say? Sometimes I'm a little bit of a glutton for punishment, and I guess it's just sort of my a bad habit from my old live journal days to want to trade blows with dumb college kids who are just wrong about stuff. I'm a guy who has over the years really tried to wean myself off the there is someone who is wrong on the internet attitude. Because I did a lot of that, when I was a younger man, and it never amounted to a goddamn thing. Because it's the internet. Arguing about TV shows on the internet doesn't amount to anything. That's why I try to keep things positive here. But, people like that just so get my goat. Anyway, so first of all, like people were going like the whole, why did I have to die? Well, that's what the whole fandom is saying. Okay, screw you, anybody who for any reason presumes to speak for the entire fandom. Okay, I will lay out for you right here, right now, why Sara had to friggin' die. for a multitude of reasons. One, and the biggest one, is if you take Sara off the board, this changes everything for everybody in Starling City. It changes for Malcolm Merlin, it changes for Oliver, Felicity. Everybody and everything changes if Sara dies. Okay, Oliver cannot turn to a friendly person with major levels of League of Assassins training because Sara is dead. He has to turn to one of basically his arch enemy, Malcolm Merlin. That is super dramatic. Just Sara's absence is super dramatic. Laurel taking those steps to try and go down Sara's path, that's dramatic. And Laurel sucks at this. That's dramatic. Quentin's reaction when he finds out that Sara is dead, he loses his daughter again. That's friggin' dramatic as hell. I mean, Paul Blackthorne just rocked that scene. That is that's probably like the best scene he's got in this entire show. And Paul Blackthorne as an actor is nobody to sneeze at. And then there are, of course, the moments like this. Sara is a presence. She's always going to be, I don't know if exactly hanging over the heads, but she's always going to be there in spirit and in the hearts and minds of everybody on this show. And there's also the issue of, okay, you've got Oliver and Sara, and they're both fighting crime in Starling City. Well, unless you're ready to bust out Darkseid or somebody like that, there's just about nobody they can't tear through like paper. Not two people of Oliver and Sara's caliber working together with help from Roy and Dig and Felicity? Unless you're bringing in like Justice League level bad guys, like Ra's al Ghul, then they flatten these guys no problem. So, in a way, Sara had to die simply because Sara was freaking awesome. But at the end of the day, this show is named Arrow. This show is about the journey of Oliver Queen. Now, we get these stories about the people who are around him. They have their own things going on. But at the end of the day, this is Oliver's story. And Oliver always has to be the axis around which everything turns. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's why Sara had to die. It's not because the people on the show hate you, the fans. It's not because they have something against people who are gay or bisexual. If that was the case, why would they have even had Sara be interested in women in the first place, for God's sake? So, seriously, pull your heads out of your asses and think. Think. Because good writers, be it TV, movie, books, comics, whatever, what is most dramatic? What is interesting? What makes the reader feel something? What can I do to tell the best story I can? And as a fellow you might be familiar with by the name of George R.R. Martin is quite fond of pointing out, well, one of those things that you can do to make stories interesting is kill major characters. So yeah, I mean, this doesn't feel like this isn't like The Walking Dead where, major characters die on a pretty regular basis. When major characters die on Arrow, it usually is a fairly significant event. And as I've said, Sara's death is, sort of the shadow hanging over this entire season. But bringing it back to Laurel, like when she's fighting with that vision of Sara, that whole, Sara saying like, "You're a fraud," If you wanted my mask, you could have just taken it. This isn't some sort of condemnation of Laurel. This is Laurel struggling against her own doubts. She even says, "I'm not ready. I don't deserve to wear Sara's jacket." It's all about Laurel's guilt and feelings of inadequacy towards just how she cannot measure up to Sara. She doesn't genuinely believe that Sara would be mad at her. Laurel believes simply that she's unworthy of being like Sara, of taking up the mantle of Sara. She thinks that her sister is just way more awesome and at this than she would ever be. And again, that just sort of plays into guilt and her own self-doubts. I mean, Oliver really throws it in her face brutally that she's an addict. So imagine what that's doing to Laurel's self-confidence. Although, in all fairness, Laurel did a pretty nice job of throwing that one right back in Oliver's face. So yeah, it's not any sort of condemnation of Laurel from the perspective of Sara, quote unquote. Again, it's Laurel just struggling with her own doubts as to whether or not she's up for this and whether or not she deserves to be where she is. So, yeah, folks, you have to, let go of your own emotions and, view these things objectively. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again here on this channel, that I really just cannot respect people who cannot view things objectively. I mean, there's nothing really wrong with sort of, wearing your heart on your sleeve, but I just don't believe in being ruled by your heart all the time. And I suppose that's that's the choice I make in life. I'm ruled by my head. But when you're trying to act as a critic, there you really kind of have to let your brain take the driver's seat. You have to sort of look at it from the storytelling perspective. Now, you should never ignore the emotional aspect of it if you're trying to be a critic. But being a good critic means really sort of dissecting it, sort of laying it all out in a formulaic and understandable and rational fashion. At least that's what I consider a proper critic to be. Now, I suppose, I guess sort of the people who I react to negatively aren't really acting as quote-unquote critics. They're really just angry teenagers posting knee-jerk reactions to television shows on the internet. But, what can I say? The old nasty habits just never quite go away. I see stuff like that, and it's like, okay, I got the hammer here. Let me tell you why you're wrong. And I never get tired of telling other people why they're wrong, because in life, I found that the people around me are wrong more often than I am. I'm kind of a dick like that, though. No, I'm kidding. Okay, folks. So my angry rants are, I think I've about exhausted my angry rants at college sophomores on Tumblr, so let's just call it here. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe, and of course you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi.